Whatever. Yeah, we will. Hi everyone, welcome here at our showroom. As you've been, or you might know, we are Shinarps, a sustainable interior company based out of Sweden. And my name is Gabor, and I'm a global business and service development manager. My job, funny enough, has nothing to do with furniture, and I've been here for the last 5.5 years. And my job was always focused around the workplace research and workplace analysis service. And if you want to talk about furniture today, I'm not your guy. I know like 10 of our products, the rest, I'm like, it's completely blinded by them. So, but my colleagues can help you if that is your aim today. Thank you for giving me this 5 to 7 to 10 minutes. 5 to 7, 4 minutes today. We've been looking at the calendar where we could talk a bit about what we have seen in the last 2 years, the post-COVID or the mid-COVID, or it's hard to know where we are with this right now, and to see how we saw it and what we see for the future of work. But before I do, briefly, a few words about us. As I said, we are Shinarps, company based out of Sweden. Our core focus is sustainable interiors. Here, mostly offices. In other parts of Europe, we also present in the education and care as well. We just had our 80th birthday this year, so we're quite old, quite big. We make some money, and here in our showroom, these are the core brands that you can see about ourselves. This was the marketing part of it. Take a snapshot if you want, and let's start what I'm here to talk about a bit more. In the past 2 years, when we look at the world of work, we've seen it as the longest unwanted experiment in modern knowledge work. No one really asked for this, and the evolutionary arc, that's all it is, that we've been on with modern work was basically stuck in the last 40, 50 years. Yeah, we had the computers appear, we had the internet appear, but basically no serious shift has happened with modern work up until COVID, where all of us, or nearly all of us, were forced out of our offices and work in our homes or work in hybrid. And ever since that's happened, it basically was an experiment. So when we look at data from these years, and we also did surveys, those are just data from an experiment that no one wanted. And how to say, let's say that I encourage everyone to look at this data as such. And what this 2 years tells me or tells us is basically a story about short-term intensity and long-term consistency. We wish to see more of the latter on the office market, especially here in Hungary. Yeah, we saw more of the first, a lot of short, intense actions. Let's get everyone home. Let's get everyone back to the office. Let's take 2 chairs out. Let's open up a meeting room. Let's close it. But we missed seeing long-term planning and long-term thinking, at least for offices. Always a bit of waiting, always a bit of idling. Let's see what the government will do. Let's see what the next wave will do. Let's see what the employees want or don't want. And we lacked, at least on our experience, long-term consistency. And maybe a good story for this would be the tortoise and the fable of the tortoise and the hare, where the slow old tortoise who did the long-term consistent effort at the end won the race compared to the hare who believe he can rest or he can wait because he has this, he just needs to wait this out and took a few naps in between. Another way of looking at it is if we think about it, we talk about the future work. It's one thing what the employees say, what others are doing, but what do you want? What do we want for the future of work, for ourselves, for our companies, and so on? And also, what are we willing to let go of the past to make it happen? Because we're talking about change. The word of work has changed. And some things we used to do before, we cannot do anymore, or we should not do anymore if we have a certain future in mind. and what are we willing to let go for the future we want. It's interesting to think about that. And one of my favorite quotes about change is by George Bernard Shaw. And he said that progress is impossible without change. And those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. So if we want a future, we should be able to change what we thought before, how we think about work, what worked the last year, two years ago, or even more in the past, might not work, and we need to change our minds about it. And when this comes to word of offices or expertise, it's also about challenge. And we want to see more challenge from our clients, from the market, challenging us, challenging the stakeholders, and challenging other suppliers as well on the market, if we want to see this change. Because if we keep doing things how we always did them in the past, nothing will change. And we probably just probably going to be relying on what other people tell us, and just wait until we end up at the same place where we started. Thank you. Maybe it was 4 or 5 minutes, but thank you again. Have a nice.
Measure, and I'm shouting a bit, but now I'm not having an echo. Thank you.
Thank you.
So yes, sorry for standing anywhere. I cannot actually, from my bag. So my apologies for that, and I will sit down there, but I don't want also to cover for our guests. But before we go on, it is a hybrid event. So for basically for the audience who is on Zoom, as usually, we just ask everyone to stay on mute, and basically who doesn't want to be recorded just has to switch off the camera on their computers. And as Gabor said, or as Gabor mentioned, basically the future is about change. It's always been about change, but now it's more than ever, and that's what we will analyze. Basically, thank you for putting the presentation. So we will be talking about future of work, about the result of the study prepared by HOA, but actually specifically about a short snapshot of the study, because the study is long enough, and it will be available for anyone who is willing to read more and learn more and gather more information. So about the condition of receiving the results of the study, you can contact HOA, and at the end of this presentation, your contact detail, you can send an email and contact us for providing you with the study, with the result of the study. But basically, this study has been prepared in collaboration with IFUA Horváth Partners, or actually Horváth IFUA now, right? Yeah. And in collaboration with the University of Pécs. This is the first very, very exciting collaboration with the University of Pécs when it comes to research, and definitely we will continue. So very exciting journey with the core lab. So you will also see the contacts at the end of this presentation if you are interested to just contact them or ask them for any other opportunities. So as I mentioned, snapshot from the survey, and my apologies, I need my pushka, my cheat sheet, because it is a very exciting topic and a lot to ask, not to miss, and there are a lot of slides. But before going there, I will start with the introduction of our guests. Maybe ladies first.
I can jump in. Hello, good morning. Nice to meet you all. Can you hear me?
Yeah, let's switch it on.
Yeah.
Should we turn on?
Hello, it's much better. I am Vera Conti, and as Monica mentioned, I am working for IFUA Horváth, one of the company who was contributing to the research. Together with Esther Paradni, my colleague, we were really excited to hear a lot of opinions about how you see the future of work, and I am very delighted to discuss the results with you.
So hello everybody, firstly thank you very much for the invitation. I'm Tanya Natstalini, Managing Director for Hayes Hungary. Hayes Hungary is one of the largest recruitment companies here in Hungary.
Hi, good morning everyone. My name is Ismail Lang from Eton, and I'm also part of the HOA board. And I was really happy to be here and also be part of this survey and what we call business outlook. And we expect the discussion today.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Attila Hermont, Shared Services Director of Albemarle Corporation. Albemarle is not a well-known brand, but we are producing lithium, which is now very popular, fueling the electric vehicle industry. Again, very happy to be here and looking forward to all the discussions and the questions around this interesting.
Super, thank you very much. So what was really the subject of the survey, what we tried to focus on? In this particular research, we try to basically focus on three major areas. Quite famous one by now, but we still thought that there are a lot of learning lessons about it, and that is the result basically of the impact of pandemic COVID-19 on workplaces and our environment, and what are the biggest learning lessons around that, and what should happen in the future. The other point was about the impact of the hybrid model on the operational performance and the opinions around that, what is really going on the organizations. And the third one, and I think a very, very active and actual one, is the integration of the new hires to the organization. So what to do, what are the problems, and what to focus on in the future. So since COVID is with us, with over 2 years by now, I'm sure that many of you could read many various studies about that. So there are a lot of studies around COVID-19, on the impact here and there, depending on when you read a study 1 year ago or even half a year ago. So the more closer we get to the date, different opinions are there. Our study is very recent, so basically it is a 6-8 weeks old study. And the number of respondents to the study was close to 50. So 50 shared service center directors or HR directors answered to the study. And basically we were curious about what actually was the experience, what kind of measures employers implemented in the past. So basically, when you look at what the results, it's majority of the companies implemented really same measures. So there was no any specific big differences between one and the other. But what is really interesting, what are the measures for the future? So are there any particular changes which the companies are trying to implement or thinking of to implement something new in the future? So actually is a question really to the shared service center directors at first stage. So what's your view, Attila? Do you agree with this statement, or is there anything by now, after being 2 years or so in this kind of situation, is there anything else which you would say, okay, I was thinking of implementing, or you know what, I will never do this again. It just doesn't make any sense at all.
Thanks, Bonnie. Yeah, it's quite interesting, as it was also mentioned by Gabor. It was an unexpected situation, and I think we learned a lot. There's a lot of, I would say, unwanted experimental experience out of this that definitely we are going to be building in. And it was indicated that in most of the respondents, definitely hybrid work is going to be now, to say, the new norm, and it's kind of a little bit kind of overused. But if we go back in time, I think still the shared service industry was the one which can or able to mostly implement the kind of remote work. And some of the participants on the market actually done this many years ago, but there were still a lot of companies, including yourself, where we're kind of in an early stage. And one of the main reasons, and that's what I was also hearing from other affiliate company leaders, that it was because of the mindset of our corporate HQ, right? They were not really ready, or did not have the trust in order to implement this hybrid model. And actually, that was a kind of forced test of our operation and the organizations. Yes, it can work even 100% remotely. Of course, we know that there are also some, I would say, downside of that. But I think that the biggest change, it was delivering definitely and changing the minds. And Gabor was also talking about yes, in order to get change, you need a mindset change. And yes, mindset change was kind of forced by the situation. So that's, as a result, it was pushing into organization that yes, hybrid is coming. And it's also triggering a lot of additional change. We can talk about the other account, the legal aspect, the HR aspect, the office aspect. There's a lot of change that is actually, but the ultimate trigger point, the ultimate driver is the hybrid. That's driving all the downstream of additional changes. That would be also.
Yes, actually, I fully agree with you. So we also started same way. We implemented most of these things, actually all of them, and it was really difficult at the beginning because our company is like a old traditional conservative way of thinking type of company where activities were linked essentially to manufacturing or distribution centers, and when the SSC was created, these activities were split, actually centralized in a location, and we had to work on a way which was completely different what the tribal knowledge in the past showed. And when this COVID came, we also had to implement new things, and the biggest fear of that hybrid or fully remote work was that people will not be able to work from home or remote because they have to be together, and there are certain areas they definitely need to work in the office. And then by the time we were implementing these changes, and it was proven that it is working, and we will talk a bit about performance, is about remote management, which was completely new because most of the leaders who we have, they are not remote managers. They are people leaders, they are appointed frontline leaders, but they did not do that in a remote work before. So it is also learning from a leadership standpoint, and also learning from a cohesion standpoint, how to manage the teams remotely and how to create a good performance. So all in all, this was really a learning for us. And actually, just now we are thinking about the next change. We will talk about how to bring back. COVID is not over. However, it's said in the media, COVID is over. So there are other things in the world we talk about that. So no COVID anymore. So we go back to office. So this is the next stage we will think about, and will be the next big change for the people. And
actually, while talking about returning to office, when I look at this slide, basically, and if I look at the previous event, so you can see that basically all the measures we could think of, which the government or anyone else requested us to implement, probably was implemented in a way or other based on less than best practice, but rather based on requirements. But when I look at this one and I say the arrangement of office workstations, only 9 out of 49 say they have to do something different. And you are talking about returning to office, right? So Vera, I look at you because I know that you have worked extensively on various studies when it comes to learning lessons about COVID, and in general, yeah, learning lessons. So what do you say about this one? What do you think the future should be?
Well, if we look into the 2 years of experiences, we've seen that in the different waves of COVID, there were very different measures. And as we see from an academic point of view, we can state that those measures are not valid anymore. So the question is, what is going to be the future challenge? And as István also mentioned, I would say the adaptability will be a key point in it. So whenever there is a new situation as we are facing, not only academic situation, but as also you highlighted, we have a war in our neighborhood. There are new challenges, and the responsiveness is a key factor. And if we are talking to the business service sector, the cost-efficient way to how to be very adaptive should be funded in the future. So I think this is the key message from our studies.
What's your view?
So from my side, when we look at the market, actually the market is, now we can start to see that the market is getting people back into the office. It's happening gradually. But if I look at Hayes, it was quite a journey, for us, so two years. At the beginning, everyone wanted to be home, and it was obvious we did it, like everyone else. But then during those 2 years, I had a mixed team. I had a bigger percentage that just wanted to come into the office and forget, all the safety rules. They didn't want to put masks on. So I had this, that they just wanted to live life, which I also understand. But as a responsible employer, and also I wanted, and I always told them, I'll always concentrate on the ones that are, a bit more scared. And I want to make a safe environment in the office. So we did put measures, but however, now we are going back to normality. And then from my side, what I've learned is actually to seize the moment. This is something, adaptability, transparency during this time, and seize the moment. So basically when the cases start to get lower, just seize the moment. We will go and have our team events, we will fully Zoom, as I say, and enjoy the success, but just really seize the moment because before you know it, something else that is going to happen. So that's something that I really learned during these 2 years. And transparency, very important, that the team needs to know if you put in rules, if you take out rules, if someone has COVID, and of course they agree that they can share it, that is really important. And I think this was a lesson learned, because at the beginning, when someone did have COVID, it was very quick. You remember the testing was very quick, so we could say it. But then the testing took a bit longer. And I was saying, let's wait for the test results. But of course, people talked in the office, and then they thought, oh, why is Tammy not telling us? So I think this is a key one for me, like lesson that I learned, that it's really important just to be very transparent, even now, going back into this new normal.
And talking about transparency, our next topic will be about data collection. Actually, I can see, I can show you here actually the experience based on our answer of what was the process of data collection actually, and what was collected by certain employers. So when we talk about data collection now and the transparency, right? So what's really the purpose and the method of data collection you would recommend for the future? Maybe Mary, we can start with you.
It's a very, very interesting topic because on one hand, the COVID highlighted that healthcare data has some impact on the performance of a given employee and also on company level. And data collection and healthcare data collection is a very, very sensitive topic. There are very, very, strict regulation, GDPR regulation, and so on, how to collect data and where to use it. But as we see on the market, there are more and more employers who are willing to understand and provide the well-being of an employee. And it's also not only the physical well-being, but also the mental well-being of the given employee. And the reason is clear, that there is a need to do that. And collecting healthcare data, I would say, will continue in the future. But respecting personal data is a key issue in doing so.
Will it continue in the future? Will you collect data? What you will use it for?
Let me start with taking a step back. I think there was an important point mentioned, GDPR and the legal background of handling this kind of personal information, healthcare information. It was also evolving. If I go back in time, a month ago, when we had the first kind of discussion, oh, that's other people, and said the legal guy was kind of screaming around, oh no, you can't do that, you can't ask that, you cannot store information, and so on. I said, okay, how should we handle the situation? Like in many other companies, we said safety first. Safety, because we are a manufacturing company, safety first is one of our kind of phrase. And we said, okay, we're gonna protect the people. There's a time when also reopen, how to reopen, how to basically going back to the office, which is again a topic that was interesting to see how it was kind of evolving, and by now you can ask information, which I think is a great help for us. We are asking, but we don't use that information with respect to make decisions about the return, because it will come. And my way of thinking that we need to start to live together with the virus, because it's not going to disappear, that's for sure. As we see that, yes, media is not talking about it, but it's still there. And we see now, actually, just at the update today morning that our China office is closing, because in China, again, the virus is there. And, kind of record high numbers in Hong Kong, in Korea, and so on, and in Germany as well. It's still there, but somehow yes, we have to start to live together. And that's something we're doing. We are asking this kind of information in order to manage the safeness of our colleagues, but we're not using it for making decisions as we did in the past. But it's more for us to know, okay, what is the level of vaccination? Of course, infection is an important information, because if someone being infected, we need to ask them, we need to deal with that. Again, respecting others' safety. That will be the only information that we are going to be dealing with. But that's an important one. But vaccination, yeah, we are asking, but it's more just for our awareness, but we are not making decision, and we are not distinguishing that we are vaccinated, who is not vaccinated.
Can I add, just to add to my stuff, so I'm not talking only about vaccination data, but also other healthcare data, because this could be very, very useful for providing a better workplace for employees. So I believe that this kind of data can be amended whenever we are talking about personal well-being of a given employee. And I believe that we should collect those data, not on personal level, but on group level, to better understand what is needed to support employees.
István, what do you collect or what you are planning to collect?
So GDPR is not against collecting data. GDPR is about how to manage data in the right way, and how to track things, and how to store, keep for a time being. So what we did is actually, you see that we were doing surveys during COVID, sometimes anonymously on a voluntary basis, just to see the vaccination state of the full population, because then it gave us some good base for measures, future measures and changes and decisions. So for us, it as a certain level was given by the people that they are, let's say, fully vaccinated. So we could say, okay, fine, then people can come back at some point, and they can meet, because it's a more safe place than if they didn't. Then these measures will change a bit. I think it will not disappear. So what we will do, we will continue as said, just now we will continue to collect data and about relevant healthcare and also the pandemic related stuff. If someone is ill, yes, there is a way to report it, because this is what we need to track. We need to help in a certain way, and it's a limited number of people with dealing with that. But this is an important element from an infection perspective. And then and on a broader scale, the healthcare data is getting more important, not only the physical, but more and more the mental health things, but we also need to deal with in the future.
I see that the mental things you're very, very much agreeing.
Absolutely. So I'll talk about that. So, but I agree with regards to the legalities that you were talking about. I think it was, I felt that my employees were willing to give the information, but the legalities were like, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that. From our side, what we are now gathering is, we've been through all this, who got vaccinated, who not, etc. But now what we do is actually we don't really ask about that anymore. It's more about if they are infected, because we need to do tracking. So in this case, they are very open and everyone's open to share. So that's what's happening with regards to, yes, the well-being and the mental, taking care of the mental aspects as well. I think it's extremely important. And I think today it's more important than ever before. And as an employer, we really need to address this and confront it and say this is something as a responsible employer we need to look into. How are we going to support it? And there's so many things happening. 2 years after COVID, now what's happening with our neighboring countries, a lot of things are happening, and people had to go through all this. So I feel that this is something, and we are discussing it in HAZE as well. How can we support our people with regards to this?
And are there any suggestions we have or best practices on the mental support?
Yeah, we actually HAZE Poland is also doing this, and we are asking them how it's done. And they have a provider, and they have calls and videos and one-to-one sessions that they provide to employees. So we are looking into that at the moment, if that's something that we can. Of course, everything is anonymous, but I think it's really good for as an employee to say, what, even for example, like if there's a mother and they don't know how to speak to their children about the war, they can speak to these people and find out how can I communicate it. So this is one, but there are other things. What's going through, what's happening, how they need to adapt. The pressure of work and all these things happening alongside. So actually speaking to someone about this is something that should be provided, and that's what we're looking at.
Thank you. So moving to the picture, we are continuously talking about hybrid work and basically remote work. So moving to this topic, actually, our next slide is showing the reflection of of the priorities. So basically, we were expecting people to answer the question when deciding on hybrid office and home office mixed work or home office work. What are their priorities really? So what are the driving factors which keep people there? And as you can see, the health risk obviously is an obvious one, which was there, but the second one was the retention risk. So assuming that the health risk goes away and there will be a norm, which is a norm, where we say, okay, this is just like it was before, 2 years before. So retention risk is still there. So as a recruitment company, and I just look at it, as a recruitment company, what do you hear, what do you see on the market? So when we purely think about retention as such, how should we think as employers? What we should be prepared for?
Well, to be honest, I think this should be on everyone's top on the agenda at the moment. So if we think back, when people were employed, let's say in 2019, they were embedded into the company, and then we went to COVID, we all went home office, and we knew them. There was that relationship, there was that, it just worked. But then we hired people, let's say in 2021, and they were not embedded as someone who was hired in 2019. So it's really important, because my feeling is that this is gonna, it's gonna happen to all the companies unless we put it really high up on our agenda to make sure that we're taking care of our people not to leave. And in all honesty, there are a lot of opportunities in the market. So they can just, peak and they will get offers. So it's really important. The retention is a very important topic to make sure that people are staying. And what I can say is what things that I would suggest to look at, or even actually we also did a survey at HAZE, and what is the reason that a person would actually think of leaving. The first one was salary is always, it was number one. This year was number one last year, but it's also the transparent, like what is their next step in their career. So I think this is something that everyone can look into and make sure that it's transparent so that the person can see what is going to be their next step. How could they develop? The other one, mainly in the business services and the shared service sector, is the complexity of the role. So this is also very important for people to stay. The well-being is very important, which we're discussing as well. So again, this should be really on top of everyone's agenda to make sure that the people are taken care of, and the flexibility. So these are key things that I personally would look at as a company to see, because with regards to retention, you need to make an obvious or measures. Like before, we would meet in the kitchen and we'd say, you know, how was your day? How was your weekend? And then you just, but now you actually need to make a deliberate, if you're not in the office, a deliberate approach and ask the people how they are, because this will also engage them more with the company. So it's a very important, I can talk about this for hours.
I
but
will return to that as well. Just, I'm really curious actually for Attila and István as well. So, you know, retention, I mean, health risk is health risk, which obviously the mental problems, mental issues, mental challenges which employees may have I think will still be there as a top category if we make this survey half a year later as well, especially now with all the impacts coming. But about the retention is as such, and connection, the home office, remote office environment. What's your view? How do you see that?
Yeah, I think as the question was also indicated in the past, the main reason for the home office or the hybrid was related to the health risk because of the epidemic. But now we are moving and actually approaching in the new phase where hybrid is the hybrid work has a different kind of meaning and different kind of perspective with respect that, hey, am I being competitive on the market with the hybrid approach, as well as talking about which has an impact on the engagement and the retention as well, which is bringing certain other challenges. But yes, if we're talking about some sort of facts, and if we just look back for data, almost 80% of the attrition was among the employees who spent less than 24 months with the company, which means for those who've been joining over the remote work, we've been kind of failing or not that successful building the engagement and the cohesion and keeping them. So talking about that, yes, it's a challenge. And in my perspective, when we talk about it later, I think that will be a challenge. And during the new, I would say, future work, hybrid will be a key, I would say, challenge. We want to use for us how we engage the people. But from the other perspective, as for me, it's a kind of catch-21. Without a hybrid work, you cannot engage people because they say, oh, on the market. And other companies are providing this kind of flexibility, and the flexibility is going to be a kind of key that's as a sort of benefit we provide to our employees. But again, that's what we see, that yes, some sort of engagement is being built during having the sort of cohesion and of those water cooler discussions in the office that the people are still, I would say, not necessarily they're missing, but we see as leaders that is required in order to build a cohesion. And definitely the numbers saying that without it, we see that people are leaving the company, regular failing to build that engagement in the organization.
So basically, we say, okay, hybrid will is the way to go. How about performance? What do you think? So the explanation here is about the reflection of SLA performance has not changed because of the introduction of home office and hybrid work. So you can see this on the answer. Would you agree with this snapshot? What's your views? What's your experience in your own company?
This is similar what you see on the screen. So when we started the COVID 2.5 years ago, then that time the business continuity was the top priority. So we had to manage the things remotely. This is what we call the hybrid, but it was close to 100% remote, and this was about the health, managing the health risk. And at the same time, we started to measure the same way what the harder performance and productivity looks like. And here about the performance, SLAs were set. We had the targets, but the technicalities were there to measure that on the same way how we did it in the past. And what we saw, there were teams where we saw no drop in the performance. There was certainly a drop at the beginning of Q1, Q2, 2020. There was a drop in volumes and customer orders and from an operational perspective, but from a shared service business service support standpoint, the SLA's targets were met, and we did not really see any difference. There were some areas where there was a drop, but that were mainly related to those areas which were in trouble. So we are working in aerospace, we are working in vehicle segments, so there was certainly a drop. But in those areas where we create electrical equipments for hospitals, for example, it was a really big increase in the need due to the COVID actually. And we were measuring the performance of the employees. It was similar. And what we see here as well, that the leaders, there is a leader side as well. And the leaders said it's much more difficult to manage due to this remote world. It's much more difficult to manage the team cohesion, as Attila said, because they got used to meet every day. They were working together with different teams in supply chain, in different operational areas, and in many cases, new people came in. It's more about integration and more about how we create this cohesion within the team and the link to the company. And it leads to retention at some point. But there were junior people and people who were in training and cross training. They were learning the job, so it was much more difficult to do these things and create this handover during the remote work. So that's the reason why our leaders said in many cases it's much more difficult. Measurement is not, it's the same, but how they are managing the teams, it was really difficult.
So according to leaders, employees don't feel that it became more difficult to achieve the same level of performance. For employees, it feels slightly differently than the leaders managing them.
Yeah, just connecting what Misha was mentioning, what we experienced that the performance did not drop. In fact, in the first couple of months, it was increasing. And we already told about it. There was nothing else to do because we saved a lot of time commuting, everything was close, so what to do? That's perfect. So that was kind of the general practice. And what we experienced, the performance did not drop. But actually, to achieve the same level of performance, it took more effort over time. And it was a kind of slow kind of trend what we've seen, like the program experience I like to use, and the more effort required. And actually, it was resulting in some sort of burnouts as well. Talking about the kind of the mental health kind of risk and situation. And that's what we hear also from the people. From a leadership perspective, it's a little bit, I would say, it's different again, because there were kind of more mature, less mature leaders, and there are leaders who can quickly adapt this situation, how to manage team and how to manage performance remotely. But actually, yes, it was a challenge, and as company leaders, we have to focus on that and provide a kind of education to the leaders and talk about what are the challenges they're facing and what new skills and competencies required in order to manage teams remotely and effectively. So again, I think we can talk about it. What was the response? But I don't think that one size fits all, because we had leaders who was very mature and was able to easily manage the situation. There were kind of newly promoted leaders or less mature leaders who was really kind of struggling how to manage the team and how to manage the performance. But overall, talking about the performance itself, we've seen at the beginning a huge drop and a huge I would say slight increase, and I was maintaining the level of the effort it required was much higher behind that one. And for the leadership, like I mentioned, I think it's kind of huge new way of working, a new way of managing things remotely, and we had to upskill the leaders in order to meet those expectations.
Let's return back to retention and your favorite topic. So basically, when we look at this snapshot, the question here for us was, what will be the important factor for employees in the future, right? So how can you retain them as an employer? So we talk about flexibility, financial remuneration, work-life balance. So this is more or less is in line what you just mentioned a couple of minutes ago when it comes to major inputs on the market as well, right?
Yeah, I would say that this is where we should be concentrating on. These are the things that you should look at also within your own companies. Career advancement as well, having that transparency and communication, right? So I think this is also a key one. So you were mentioning with regards to managers and how you had to upskill your managers, and I think this is really important because it's the managers who speaking to the team and having this hybrid model. It's really important to make sure that they're communicating because they're not meeting every day in the kitchen. So they need to be deliberately communicating to make sure that the employee feels they are different to 3 years ago. 3 years ago at Hayes, we had 4 days in the office and 1 working from home. At the moment, we're still with the 8 week, so lack of space, to be honest. But eventually we will come to 3 days in the office and 2 days working from home. But we're not in the office all together, right? So it's kind of varying. So sometimes you're meeting your colleagues once or twice a week. So it is going to be different. And we need to do deliberate steps, conscious steps to make sure our colleagues, our employees are feeling part of a company. So I think this is extremely important. And as I said, the transparency of what is the next step, where is the next role for them, and also the roles, the complexity. This is always mentioned in the sector actually from candidates with regards to having a more complex role. So you need to be looking at your employees and saying, is it, is this giving them the satisfaction, the motivation to leave? So I would say these are, and the well-being, as you were saying, as well, is another key factor.
When you look at the snapshot, on the top, let's say 6, right, and also the ones at the top. I remember, still leading employees some time ago, everyone was asking, where are you located? How far I should travel? And so on. So see that out of 49, no one answered that office location is important anymore. Actually, this is a big message to me. Sorry for Chinarks as well, in a way, and any other advice. But basically, what people say is that I don't care anymore where you're located. I just want to work from home as much as I can, having absolute flexibility and work-life balance in my role. I really would love to know what you're expecting from me, how I can progress. It would be great to have a leader who actually talks to me sometimes, right? And has a good communication style. And for the job security, for me, the message is that it would be great to know what the company is planning. That's how I translate it. I might be wrong. I don't know. What's your translation of this?
Yes, very interesting result. And I would pick the number 1, the flexibility. Because flexibility is a very popular buzzword today, and on the employee level, what you mentioned, flexibility and work-life balance, it can go hand in hand, but it can be also an opposite way. Because if I am flexible and I don't have fixed working hours, it can ruin my work-life balance. And flexibility is also an important notion from a CEO level, because I had several projects where we talked with large enterprise CEOs, and they required flexibility on a company level. And from an organizational perspective, flexibility means rather a very, very rapid reaction time, adaptability to change. And when we are measuring the given employees, and I would be really excited to hear Tommy's opinion as well, employee level, when we're talking about flexibility, is not going obviously hand in hand with the adaptability of change. And there are very, very disruptive questions to solve to better understand what is going to be provided by the employers and how we are going to translate flexibility to an employee level.
Actually, before I get into that, I just wanted to mention, you said about the office location. and the office itself. I actually think it's really important because if you want the people to come, then it needs to be in a location that they can get to. Otherwise, if it's in the middle of nowhere, then it will be more difficult to actually get there. So we find it very important. So find for us the location also very important.
So actually, there's one more information which is important for our audience here. The survey has been fulfilled by the HR directors and center directors, and not by employees, right? So if I would do the same snapshot by the employees, it's a very important question here, because the way how we as leaders see this, what we think is important versus what our employees think are important, right? So I think what Temi is trying to translate here is the input from employees, and I think there is a, yeah. Yes, sorry, go ahead.
One question that I understand that this.
We can't hear you, sorry, you can.
Sorry. So
Yes,
there's one issue that popped in my head that even though this was filled up by HR leaders. On the other hand, if you read an article, everybody talks about that you need to create a work environment in order to attract people back to the office. So I just don't get it. How come that work environment is so down to this? Other than location is there.
So it is, yeah, it's very
And
interesting.
even if it's an HR leader, you can't really think that location doesn't matter.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
No,
I
it's
mean,
fine. I was just gonna say that probably the people who sort of don't drive, so so for them location doesn't matter because they're driving, but for most of the employees, they're taking public transport, so I think that's a good thing.
there is other point here, sorry. I'm being very picky here. So the presence of a leader and manager, to me, the presence of a leader and manager, whether he or she is present online or physically, doesn't make a difference, but whether they are present in my life to be able to give direction, mentorship, anything, I think it's very important. And again, it's a reflection of executives here, which to me gives a mixed message. Attila, you are an executive. What's the message to you?
I agree that the message here, I think that the leaders and the employees may have a different point of view. And I think we need to be a little bit more inclusive when we make decisions what the employees want rather than what the management wants to be focusing on. And when we were talking about it, what informations we are collecting with respect to that, I mean, we did not talk about it, that yes, when you were referring to that, we do run a lot of surveys around what the employees see as a focus. And we are asking them during the pandemic as well, during the remote work as well, what support do you need? How you feel, how can we help, whether this is employee assistance program, or whether this is related to remote team buildings, or whether this is related to equipment at home, whatsoever. So basically we open up, okay, let us know. We do the same, you can return as well, we asking the people, okay, what you should be focusing on actually in preparation for the return. First week of April, I'm asking that, okay, tell us what do you think would be worth. So office location, I think, let's pick that one. I think it's yes and no, because there are individuals who already moved outside, even on the countryside, and for them it doesn't really matter because they have to anyway jump on the train and 2 times per week come to the office, and they don't care about whether where the office is located. But of course, who remain in the city, for them, I think it still matters. And now we're looking also for a new office, and yeah, it's going to be effective where it's located. We will not consider to move out from the downtown or from the last corridor, because that will have a negative impact. In fact, that was validated. We asked the people, and they told us, yes, it would have a negative impact in case we would be moving our office. We can't just take it as a cost initiative and go somewhere in the suburb of the city and have an office there. So yes, I have to say that one. It's still a factor. I think flexibility now, from my perspective, it's built in as a hygienic motivation factor. So it's employees, it's taken as a given. It's not anymore basically an extra. What from my perspective, if we would be asking the employees again, I think the career and the advancement would be on top of this. I think that's what we see as the top reason
For employees.
for employees. When we asked why they are leaving the company, where they are leaving us, over 50% leaving because of lack of career progression or fast enough career progression. That's a different
The
question.
definition of fast enough.
Exactly,
That's another
I think
major topic, but-
that's a different question. What, how quickly we should basically progress in the career, what's the expectation of the generation versus what's reality? That's a different question, but that would be the majority of the answers.
István, you did your answer?
Just a quick one, referring to what you just said about the work environment, it's really important. So we left it on the same way how it was before for a simple reason, because we knew that at some point we will return. So now we return, and now people would like to go back to a good environment, what they get used to in the past. And even we need to bring boosters, so not like chin-ups is really beautiful, and I'm pretty sure we at Eton will never be at that level for a simple reason, because the expectation of different businesses need that there is a specific need for that. They need classical workstations, but this is what the company decided to do. And in order to bring back people, we need additional things to make them, to feel them home. This is important, and people got used to be at home in the past 2 years. And when we talk about flexibility, we always have different meaning, because people would like to, employees would like to maximize flexibility, but what actually they mean under this, maximize remote work. This is what they mean under that. And for me, flexibility is a completely different thing. And remote work is just one element of the flexibility. And this is about how we reintegrate mothers to work, how we create part-time, how we manage IND, people living with disabilities, and many other examples I have. So this is about flexibility, how flexible we can be in order to open the door for many people to create and to show their performance on the best way, and we support that. This is for me flexibility. And for employees, in many cases, is give me 100% remote because it was done in the past 2 years, and what else you can still give. So this is the question I receive every day now.
And we will talk about remote in a minute, but before we go to remote, what about us leaders? How do we feel the same about the same topic, about the same questions? So what are our priorities to be retained in the organization? How do you feel about that? Tammy, how do you feel as a leader to be retained as a head of the company?
So personally, I actually, after COVID, I think it was quite good that we got a better work-life balance. Let's be honest. I'm happy to also work 2 days at home, and it's a great thing. Also, I have kids, so actually it really helps me if I need to do things and manage my life much better. So I think this is important, and I think this really does. So if I look at myself, you're asking me, is work-life balance important? Yes, it is. Is flexibility important? Of course it is, depending on what flexibility means. Now, you also asked this, Vera, about flexibility. For me, flexibility is about if I need to go to the dentist in the morning, or my employees need to go to the dentist in the morning and they come a bit later, that's being flexible. They need to leave a bit earlier, that's also being flexible. And I think that's something that's we should, and it seems that after COVID, employers are much more flexible. It's no longer a taboo if someone needs to go and pick up their children, whether it be a male or a female. And I like that. I like it. I'm on calls, and sometimes my male colleagues are saying, "Oh, you know what? I need to leave. I need to go and pick up my child," and that's great. And it could be, either a female or a male. And now it comes out much more. And that, I think, if you ask me, I think that's something that is really good to see, and something that will also be appreciated by all employees. With regards to remuneration, it's still very important, I think, also as a leader. But of course, the older you get, then of course the work-life balance also is, if you have a family and other hobbies or anything, then that, starts to take over as well.
Yeah, your view as a leader.
I totally agree with Tammy, and it's very interesting how this changed from the employee to the leader per statement. I'm challenged as a mother of two sons. The work-life balance for me, it was much more difficult to manage a team remotely during the COVID situation. But it was also because all the institutions were closed. So managing my own life and managing my children's life was a big challenge. But it's also, I think, a general perspective that work-life balance can be very different upon the family situation. And this is also a factor what a workplace should consider, that we are having a very, very different background, and managing work life and what does flexibility means is also a big challenge on a family level and even the employees and leaders situation. And it's also very interesting, if we look into the chart, as István mentioned, that leaders are facing very different challenges that they were facing before. And perhaps this is why the work-life balance is the number one, because for a lot of leaders to manage work-life balance and to manage the new intensity of the work that they were facing was a large challenge. So I would underline the importance of giving the tool set of the middle managers and the managers to manage teams remotely.
Yes, just to, if you remember the previous slide, and we were, it's changed a bit. So work environment in the previous slide, it was lower, so it went up a bit to the middle somewhere, and this because the leaders expect to maintain a good work environment in order to reintegrate or integrate people to a new environment, which is happening now with new hires, which is happening now with reorganized teams, and we need to maintain a good environment when we are talking about returning to the office. To a certain extent, but this is important for the leaders. And then it came in a completely new thing, which aspect was not on the previous slide. This is integration, and it's really on the close to the top. So the top four is exactly the same like in the previous slide. A little bit changed, but it's the same. And then integration came into the picture. So this is really about the challenges and the activities of the leaders, what we have to deal with every day, how we integrate people, new people in an environment when just a story, a new person coming in on Monday morning to an office and a couple of hours there, meet HR, IT, some compulsory things, sign the contract, get the laptop, go home. This is what's happening, right? How can the people know about the team? How to create cohesion? In many cases, they do not really meet, even do not meet the online manager, which is not a shame. It is how we work in the past 2 years, and it's really difficult to create this skill cohesion, which we call now here integration, and how to create this link to the company itself. And then when we are talking about the kind of aim of 20% attrition rate, it will be much higher if we don't pay enough attention to this.
Actually, reflecting on this integration perspective, I think, again, the previous snapshot was a snapshot provided by executives, what they think, what their employees needs, right? Which, interestingly so, the integration is low enough, but we will talk about integration later, which I don't, if we would make the same questionnaire for employees, I'm sure that it will be probably on the top somewhere that they just don't find themselves in the companies. But what you mentioned as well is a very interesting point, that for leaders is a huge challenge to integrate their employees, but we, for whatever reason, assume that everyone is capable of doing that. And I think that's, to me, I think that's a wrong assumption. I feel like you want to.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight it. I think two aspects here as a leader, one as a human being, sometimes you're also a human being as leaders. Flexibility is key. I think my example, for example, tomorrow I will be where my daughter will be at home, and previously it was not I would say organizationally and culturally, it was not that accepted that hey, the leader will be also working from home and potentially joining a meeting remotely. I think it's now it's much more accepted and tolerated. And the other aspect is, I think, the work environment and the integration, as Ishma mentioned, as leaders, we see as an important factor. We need that as a focus, as a priority in order to build engagement. And I agree also with the comment, the work environment. I think it's more important than ever because we only get 2 days in the office to leverage the office as an integration hub and also use for employer branding to build a brand. But right now, for most of the colleagues, the company is that small screen as the company, nothing else. And that's why we've been building and investing millions of dollars into offices to create a kind of inspiring and engaging and collaborative environment. So I think now, previously we get 5 days, now we got only 2 days to build and achieve the same impact. So I think the environment is, from my perspective, is more important than ever as a leader. And integration, I think we talked about already perspective and data facts around 80% of the labor less spend is in the company. So that's in itself.
When I look at the integration of the new colleagues, as a challenge to leaders, to me, the key message there is that the role and responsibility of the L&D function in the companies, if there are any, if there are no, then probably is the time to create those, the learning and development departments of what will be the future of their work, or could be the future of their work, to support the leaders and the employees in terms of integration. To me, that's the key message out of this snapshot. And the other one, which is an interesting one, which we don't talk about, or did not talk about yet, is that job security of leaders is a question mark here on this snapshot. So basically, many of them think that with all these changes happening, they might not feel secure, or they just don't want to stay. So, Tammy, what do you hear from the market? What do you see? What do you observe?
Regards to job
Security by leaders, yeah.
In all honesty, actually, when COVID started, right, I think not only leaders, everyone was looking around saying what's going to happen in the next month, 2 months is, are we going to downsize? But, oh, I hear this happening, I hear this happening. So I think everyone questioned with regards to job security, what is going to happen to their job. And I think that was quite a natural reaction. And I think as employers, it was really key for us, and also my managers, it was really key for us to reassure, whether it be a manager or whether it be employees, to reassure them that this is not the road that we're going to go down. But I think putting job security there, I think it was a natural thing, especially when COVID hit, because it was, I remember it was a Friday and then Monday we were fully remote, and it was the first 2 weeks also personally to adjust to the whole situation, and then you start to hear companies downsizing. It just made everyone kind of look around and think, what's going to happen to me, what's going to happen to my people, etc. So I think that was a reaction. But now I think it's, we are, as a recruitment company, we're like really busy, and we're really, have a lot of projects, breaking records. So it's not something that goes in anyone's head. We're very busy. We need to expand. We need people.
Obviously 2 years. So when we reflect on the 2 years ago situation, it was a natural reflection of the market, because companies just reacted the way they reacted. Now 2 years passed, obviously many companies learn to operate in a way or other. They recognize the benefits and also the risks behind operating the way they do. So it's really a recent need. Somehow it says, it's just, I would say 30% of respondents, but somehow it says it's reflecting, with organizations are changing, and because they are changing, they are finding their ways of operating efficiently, effectively. Am I really safe in the job I do? So somehow this is the message to me, but I might be wrong, but where you maybe.
No, I just wanted to highlight the other slide. The employee level of job security is even lower which means that there is a retention problem here, and we should really focus on, it's not enough to provide a safe job, we should do much more, and we have to fulfill all the requirements above in order to keep the employees. Because here, the job security is even more important for the leaders, but still the above factors are more influential. And this is also a very key message to everybody that we should focus on.
Let's move to the next one, which is which I would like you to reflect on first, perhaps, is the hybrid way of working considered more effective than fully remote way of working?
It's a very, very complex question, and whenever you are talking about returning to office, everyone is willing to have or normal life back, and we strongly believe that there is going to be a new normal, and this new normal can be the hybrid way of working. But to be honest, we had a very large social media research on what people would like to, and what we discovered that there is a large generation gap, younger generation, and Y generation turned to be old, but younger generation, it was also Inshwan mentioned, a fully remote workplace, and they believe that they can be as efficient as in a hybrid or another model. So what we see that for older generations, working in a hybrid way can be efficient, because we need performance or personal presence to be better performed. But for others, younger generation, fully remote can be as efficient as hybrid. And also we had a very good discussion with Tammy prior, that it's also depending on the industry, on the given task, what we have to fulfill. For example, when we need to concentrate or administrative tasks, it's more efficient to work from home, but where we have a collaborative brainstorming type of task, it's more efficient to work together. And I think it's mainly employees who are pushing towards a hybrid model, because we need to give cultural support, collaborative support, and chit-chat support to colleagues to feel what our company's values are. And it's much easier at this stage of the change to bring employees to a given place and to work together. But perhaps in the future it will also change. So, Penny, would you like to?
So my concern with that is if employees want to be fully remote, again, is the retention. So personally, I'm in a lucky position because most of my people want to be hybrid, so not fully remote. However, I, as the leader, I would really push to be like a balance. It doesn't mean fully in the office, but not fully at home, because of the retention. And let's be honest, if you're in the office, you'll hear someone more experienced on a call. You won't get that at home. And that's the way it is. So employees can say yes, they can be, and I'm sure they're very productive and I'm sure they're great, but those things they won't get unless they're in the office. And if you're in this hybrid model, you're still losing, because if you come in 3 days or 2 days, maybe that senior person is not there. So you wouldn't hear the call as you would have heard it in 2019. And I think that makes a difference. However, I really again stress retention, because if they're fully remote, they're not coming to the office, they don't have the DNA of the company, it will backfire. That's my thing.
So, okay, so as a reflection to that, what you were just mentioning, so what kind of skills will be the future skills for the employees to have, to obtain? So the snapshot here is actually reflecting on the answers that in the changing environment. And actually, you can see here the comparison. So what were the skills, which were the real core skills of the employees to be hired before the big change, somewhere up to 2020, and now, right? So what we think will be the future skill for our employees. So it's really interesting to me at least, that on the top categories, it's not such a big change, right? But there are certain skill sets or skills which are like, really, really out or changed compared to 2 years ago. And we talked, you reflected adaptability to change, you talked about that. So I think everyone talked about that. So you can see that that is like, it's really, really a very important factor here. So I don't know, István, would you like to start maybe on these ones? What's your view?
Yes, so the top categories, I mean, the top language skills in our world will remain important. So that's probably the reason why they are similar to the past and for the future, because we need the languages. Languages, at least for those areas where what we call it as a target business location, what we support. So that's why we need these languages. Krista knows better than I do. 37 languages we have in our building or more. Prepared, so it's really a lot. Even over 40 and many nationalities, around 30 nationalities. So this is what we need in terms of support perspective for those areas what we provide support. The other thing what I would really mention is digitalization. So this was growing and developing by COVID, together with COVID, or as an impact of COVID, because this is what we anyway had to use, everybody, and we all use the online meetings. It was one of the most important elements, I believe, and this I think will remain, and many other things goes to the digital world, how to manage processes, how to automate processes on a good way in order to maintain this on a good level. And again, back to the remote team management and the remote teams, the team members need to get access to the same things and the same areas and processes in order to manage them well. So this is important. Our company, we have a completely new sector called digital and energy transition. This comes together. Energy transition is an interesting one, is about mainly what you may call the chargers for the cars, electric cars, which is digital. And the sector is really about how to make things more on a digital way and how to develop things on a digital way, and also not only the processes but the skill set of the people to understand well, to be really effective and productive individually as well, just because they are remote. So these two things I would emphasize. The change we talked about, that this really reflects what we just mentioned before.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with István, definitely. I think working remotely was the biggest digital transformation initiative itself, was driving a lot of things, speeding up a lot of things, and we all need to be a little bit more competent and with respect to how to approach the digitalization of work. I fully agree with the adaptability to change. I think that everything was changing even from one day to another. That's work remotely, and now hybrid, again remote, now hybrid, now back, and also the way we've been working, it was completely changing. What I'm a little bit challenged is suitability for teamwork. I think it's a perception that just because you're working remotely, you do not have to work in teams. And I think from my perspective, it's completely wrong. It did not change. It's just we are perceiving it was changing. As a downside impact, we are not integrating people. And there is I would say, gap with respect to knowledge, because people are not working together. And we thought about that, hey, potentially the senior guys is in a different day in the office. So what we did in the company, we announced a so-called collaboration day. We said that 1 day per week for a given team, everyone needs to be in the office. But there needs to be 1 day per week in order to meet, make sure that there is no such one individual A is Monday, Tuesday in the office, individual B and Wednesday, Thursday in the office, and they never meet each other. So that's how we try to overcome. From my perspective, 80 or 70-80% of work in a business service industries operation. From my perspective, operation is a team sport. Whether we want it or not, whether we acknowledge or not, it's a team sport. We need to work together with our team and department and organization levels. We need to meet together. And without teamwork, I'm not saying we can't meet, we just make it more difficult. That's my personal basically point of view about that one. So teamwork, I think it's now underrated, and I think it's a trap.
How about when I look at this snapshot, obviously, and the remote work environment, I mean, many companies move their roles here and there, everywhere across the globe, and they will continue to operate this way. So the skills which were necessary for on some of the levels before, maybe not necessarily on the employee level, on the lower level of employees. I mean, the beginners or the less experienced ones. I mean, those will come up now, right? Because obviously people work in Hungary, but work outside of Hungary, and there'll be more and more work coming through like this. So they have to be very much flexible to work with all the cross cultures and regions and whatsoever. So this kind of from that point of view, when I look at the special skills about the teamwork, about problem solving itself, or what we would imagine these employees would need to know, or the cooperation, right? So I guess we would, at least from my perspective, I would say that we need these skills very, very much. So how do we search for those? How do we employ those really? How do we test those? I mean, adaptability for change from someone who is just joining your organization, we are not able to integrate, you say, we have difficulties to integrate. How do you test that skill? How do you test that skill each time?
So adaptability to change is not something that we can train. It is coming, let's say, on the job for me, because the first trial was with the COVID. We had to make the changes in order to protect people. That was the first layer about the health and safety piece, and the impact and the focus was more on physical health than on mental health. Now with the remote is a bit different, because the remote is really about let's say a sense of belonging to the company, belonging to the team, belonging to a certain environment. And imagine if someone is completely new, definitely need to adopt, because need to accept things at a new place. But how we ensure these changes are kept well and transmitted well on a way that the person will receive whatever and we would like the person to receive is really difficult. And this is where we come to the adaptability to change, which is partially with the personality and openness of the people. On another way, how we prepare, so the leaders, how to prepare well in order to, and now go back to integration, how to create this good environment to manage the integration in the right way.
Leaders. How about leaders? Tell me, what are the future skills for leaders? What do you think? What were there before, and what are the ones which we think, should be there?
So I would say, of course, you can see the high change management skill, and I think that's no surprise, right? So they need to have that skill, and also the empathy. This is very important for leaders now to have that empathy. Some leaders, maybe they don't feel comfortable to actually, speak about certain topics, but it's really important now that they are, speaking to their people and making sure that they have those open conversations. Also, I would say not only for leaders, but I think employees in general going forward, they also need to be more independent. So they need to, when they're starting off remotely, they need to have more independence, and you can't spoon feed them as you did previously. Problem solving skills, I think, is also, you can see it was important before, and it continues to be important. So I would expect that to continue. And the cooperation skills, there's quite a jump. And of course, the skills related to digitalization. For me, when we're looking for candidates going forward, is you know, being tech savvy, being adaptable, having empathy, and being independent. If you were to ask me the four top ones, these are, which are more soft skills, so it's not like tick the box, you did this is your experience, but more soft skills, and that's, you know, during an interview, you need to spend time to see whether they show those capabilities, so that when they come to work for you, you know that they can confront whatever comes their way. Should it be a leader?
Yeah, what's your view on that one?
And there was some surprise to me. The first surprise was the crisis management skill, that it's still a very low increase in it, but we were in continuous crisis management over the past 2 years. And also what we were talking about, the integration abilities, although there was a slight increase, but we mentioned integration as a #1 priority, but it's in the end of the table. So I would believe that it's much more important as we perceived during this survey. And the third one was what you mentioned, the team building ability. Also, the team building ability is among the #3 priorities when we are talking about teamwork. It was a slight decrease, and I definitely say that the team building ability is among the #1 priorities, because as leaders, to build up teams remotely is a #1 priority in terms of retention and integration questions. So these were my surprises.
I'm surprised at the wrong time.
Oh, there are always surprises, but no, I think here again, the sort of the flexibility and is important from leadership perspective. There's a totally different environment and something which is not there. And again, we're talking about different skills required for leadership to be able to manage an organization as well. Empathy, I think, is only one. It's very important, but only one which required to be able to be successful as a leader in this environment. But from my perspective, flexibility is key as a leader as well to be able to manage the organization. So
The all the leaders are, or some should be.
that we all used to present. Yes.
Okay.
It's now in the past, of course. We need to accept that people again join remotely, and again they need to step down to pick up the kids and adapt into the daily recruiting. Good.
We try to compare various type of work, basically, so how, you know, various work models, let's say this way. So the question here was that to what extent do you consider the following characteristic aspects to be typical for home office, meaning work fully from home, compared to working fully in the office. So if we compare working fully from home versus working fully from office, you know, the conclusion was that working fully from home makes integration more difficult. I think there is no any surprise there. Although the chart is very colorful, so you can see that there are, you know, various opinions here, whether it's very typical, not typical, depending on what the aspect was. But at the end of the day, the outcome of this is that we can all agree create cohesion is much more difficult. The next one was about similar combination of the hybrid work and office work. Actually not that dramatic color change, but in general, you know, #3, #4, some average people agree that, you know, hybrid work is more similar to traditional office work and more efficient than fully remote work. So I think, again, we should never forget that the survey was fulfilled by senior executives, and that's one way of looking at it. But it's an interesting section overall. Last but not least, the integration part. So we arrived to the integration part, and basically I would like to ask of what, I mean, it's a question to you all. So what are the most important aspects, critical aspects, which comes to play when it comes to integration? We are seeing a snapshot, very colorful one. Again, what's your view on this issue?
Yeah, so we touched the integration we touched digitization already, some points. Now herein it is important, I fully agree with the first one. So the involvement of the line manager. For me, probably I'm a bit older generation already, comparing to the vast majority of our people in the building. The leader is the leader. The leader has to be there on the day one, in order to welcome the new person, in order to show things and introduce the company. Because the line manager is the first contact for, and will be the first point of contact in future. And if there is no presence, it's really difficult to build up the trust. That's for me the first thing. The second one, we used to have a 1 day onboarding day, first day in the past. Even pre-COVID, we had sometimes 2 days, because it was a generic compulsory things about the legal aspects, the company, soft skills, and some trainings already together, and then assign the buddy and the mentor, or a mentor who was together with the new hire and have him or her making sure have good understanding and questions are answered and introduced by the kitchen area is located. So many practical things. Today is not working all the way, and we do everything online. Day 1, day 30, day 90. So this is what we follow, but online only and really impersonal, I believe. And this is not really helping us creating cohesion between the teams, team members, and the specific link I mentioned to the company. There was a person came to our building for an onboarding, but actually he went up 1 floor above, so spent 1 hour onboarding a different company, where they also realized the person is at the wrong place, because some people came into the same building for onboarding on Monday, and then the person was sent to us. So the person didn't even know where he was going. So this is really a good start for the future common work. Okay, so it doesn't matter. At least I see what the color is of the company, then I can recognize. So this is where we start. Previously, pre-COVID, or when we had meetings and face-to-face meetings, it was obvious a good cohesion, even between those people who were having the onboarding day together. They were having lunch. It was a community after years. Now it's not there anymore. So that's why it's more important the leader's role and the mentor role, I believe, than the others.
What is interesting here to me, at least, and I'm really curious about your opinion about the employees' previous work experience, whether it is within or outside of the sector. You know, what role does it play if someone is going to be integrated into a company? What's your experience, Tammy, when you are interviewing people, or your colleagues interviewing? So how do they feel if they join a company? Do they have any expectation during their interviews that there is, or do they say, you know, okay, I know I will learn about Eton, and I will just go there and see what they will tell me?
No, I actually, when you start, I like to ask them, is it what you expected? But we really spend a lot of time before to really explain what the role is and what to expect, because if it's not in their interest, then, you know, I think it's always a good when we're interviewing them. I also tell them that this is not only about me knowing about you, it's also about you knowing about the company. And if you want to join Hayes, and if it's something that you want to do long term. So I do like to ask when they start, so I give them some time to settle in. And I do like to ask them, is it what you expected? And normally it is. They don't have any surprises, but we do spend a lot of time during the interview process to make sure it's very clear.
Is there a difference between the employees coming from outside the sector, new joiners, line, let's say this way, or career changers, or the ones which already are, you know, in the system somehow, in terms of integration?
It's honestly, we did not measure as such, so I can only talk about, I would say, my perception. I don't think there is any difference. Of course, they may say that oh, in case the onboarding would have been digital, I would never miss the floor. So that's a good one for the digital work. But no, I'm referring to your question. Definitely, I think onboarding is important, but as Tommy mentioned that it's now we need to be extremely cautious around how we position ourselves and whether it's going to be right fit or not. We're talking about the people leaving within 2 years. It's also about how are we targeting the right people? Are we targeting the right not only skills, but I think it's cultural fit as well. Because and it's extremely hard to measure if someone is or assess if someone's culture fitting as well as adaptability of change. It's not something you can easily, of course, you ask the individual, are you adapting change quickly and easily? And the answer, and I've heard an answer, no, I cannot change easily, of course, but it's extremely difficult. I don't see any difference whether it's coming from the sector or outside of the sector. It's more personality. And the challenge now for recruitment, and we're struggling to keep time, find the right people for this new environment as well. And one of the factors that people leaving earlier because they may not be a good fit for, but it's not related to, from my perspective, to whether it's someone's coming from the sector or outside the sector. Of course, we're all struggling with the labor market, let's say, compression and challenges. So we try to access people outside of the sector, but it's more, from my perspective, more.
Our last slide today, and then give the floor to questions, is about the expectations, whether there are expectation changes related to leaders in particular when it comes to onboarding. So, how useful do you think each activity in the process of integration is? And so, from my perspective, the first one, running onboarding programs, and the second one, appoint a mentor. You talked about mentors, so how important it was. So. It's coming up again, right? So it's quite a big percentage with 4 and 5. Find it very useful to have a mentor when it comes to onboarding. So, what's your view?
So for us, it as part of the onboarding program, there was a buddy system. Is not really a mentor, is a buddy. Mentor is a different one, comes later, but during the onboarding days and weeks, months, there is a buddy, experienced colleague from a different function. Doesn't really matter. Important is the person is really knows the company and out, so can explain and reflect and share good best practices or what to expect from an employee perspective. So this is really important. What we had in the past, and as part of the onboarding programs. And the onboarding program should really contain things about the company, to create this cohesion I mentioned, and the link to recognize the people who work at the company at least, and not only just see the leaders and others online once in a quarter when all employee meetings are held, and we do not even meet, and sometimes I go to the kitchen area for a coffee and I need to introduce myself, and I do that. Just because I don't know the people face to face, so this is really something not having either, and part of the onboarding program, they get to know the company, get to know the colleagues, and get to know what I will be dealing with, and where is my part, and my part of the business within the business line. Where is my added value? This is very important. So try to make sure people have a good understanding about that on the long run. So then we can start creating this cohesion.
In my view, onboarding is a very interesting topic, and onboarding is a must-have. And what we see during the past 2 years was that onboarding process started with the recruitment. So I think what Tommy highlighted, that the expectation management, and even when someone accepted an offer, there was a little time during the given employee was thinking over his and her role, and kind of being familiar with the colors and not to miss the floor. And what we see with many companies, that they started to shorten this period and start the onboarding process even right after accepting the offer. And this was very, very useful. And if we would like to highlight one element is the offline team building. So this is what we are thinking about integration, that we try to bring employees closer to the workplace, try to meet in person. And this is a very, very important way of integrating colleagues. And what István highlighted, the buddy and the mentorship program is also really, really important. And it takes a very huge effort from the company as well to build up and to give time for old colleagues to meet with new joiners. And we should put the emphasis on, and we should give the time for these type of programs, I strongly believe.
I open the floor to questions. Before that, you can see the HOA at HOA.hu is the place where you can write to request a report, the full report. And what I also would like to mention is that in the report you can find interviews with basically colleagues from various recruitment groups, managers of recruitment companies, talking about their point of views of the future of work, as well as video interviews with various general managers of shared service centers from MOL, from RB and others. So we really invite you to contact our group, HOA group, to access the survey. So with that, I open the floor to questions, and I will run around with the mic. You go there. Okay, you run around with the mic.
You can hand over there, I guess.
All right, thank you. I'm Mati. I'm coming from a company called Days Together, and I think we have listened to a lot of ideas here, and we discussed some problems. I think we are all revolving around one topic, which is the conservative approach of real estate. And my question is, like, we take the offices granted for 7 days. My question, whether most of your problems could be solved if you only had an office for 2 days a week, and then for 100% of your people. And then we already heard Attila saying that they already have a collaboration already. So I'm asking for feedback, whether you believe if you had the same amenities, the same views, I mean, like the same view in the office for 2 days a week, whether that would solve all your problems.
Thanks for the question. Yes and no. My favorite answer. I think it of course it creates, it solves a lot of problems. I mean, and there's no more questions that on which day you have to come to the office. And it creates a problem because it defines which day you have to come to the office. So I think people like the flexibility. I want to come Monday and Wednesday, and others I want to come on Tuesday and Wednesday, others coming Wednesday and Thursday, depends on their private, I would say, preference. The other question is that if we have an office on for 2 days, does it mean that it would be a shared office with other companies? If so, then how do I enjoy the benefit of the branding? Because that's, for me, is an important factor. If I can have, in an ideal world, which I don't think it exists, that I'm only paying an office for 2 days, including all the I would say benefits and the branding, it might be a solution, but we lose flexibility, which was on top of every list. So I think while there would be upside and downside as well. Again, I think from my perspective, office is always a question whether we look on that as a benefit or we look on that as a cost opportunity. And we need to make that call. We need to make that call very soon, each of us. But which perspective we're looking for. And I think every organization is in a different level of acceptance. From our perspective, we don't see we are there where we can go any limitations. We can go 120, 30, 40% seat utilization. Our organization is simply not there yet. Whether we will be there in 2 years down the road, maybe, we don't know. And if you see other companies where home office is already 10, 15 years part of the culture, then they look on that from a different perspective and they will say, oh, that's a great idea, because then we can save a lot of costs. We generate expectations from the corporate HQ, and then we can easily fulfill.
I'm just thinking that it might be, obviously there is a difference between business services sector and public and shared services that we talk about in any other sector, because that's, this one is the way of functioning ultimately drives certain decisions, and then this, as you said, certain decisions will have to be made, whether they become final or not. But for sure, for any other sectors, probably that is much more predictable. I mean, your proposal probably is much more predictable at this stage.
One more thing on that. There are different companies maintain different business models. So it means that whatever Attila is managing will be different for us. It's not because we don't see the market on the same way or similar basis, because we have different expectations and business leader expectations even in the region, how to manage and how to support those areas what we are requested to do. So for us, it will not be a big change for example, creating bigger collaborative area, because we may need more workstation in the future, because together with the growth, we are growing areas which are technically customer service, supply chain areas, finance, versus we are not having software engineers, or not too many, who can go and work fully remote, and I can give back some part of fully the office. So this is based on the business case and the business need. So for sure, we will continue. We go back. We come back to the office not 7 days a week, because it goes back to a competition question. How we could be okay with the market, and it's not because we are competitors. It's because what the employees and the potential employees expect us to provide as an employer. So what things under flexibility or home office they expect us to provide. So this is mainly the driver here. And as long as we can find a good balance between the hybrid environment and home office and give the flexibility elements, and people understand these elements really well, and not mean under flexibility only in the remote, but all the other elements as well, and use it as a benefit, it could be good. And then the market will go on a way that the new hybrid models will emerge.
Actually, if I may comment on that, sorry, from this side, is actually the recruitment market itself is what will also drive these decisions in the future, because depending on the talent need, the perspective of fully remote working may come to the picture, and then by this driving the office need as well. So I think that the next, let's say, 1 or 2 years will definitely show what is really the real direction at the end, what is the flexibility of various companies, and what is the line to say, okay, this is the way, that is the way, what should happen to the office space, and in what way. So I love that basically employers are ready to make a decision like that now. Basically, that's the message.
I'm sorry, can I ask you maybe from like better from an HR perspective,
About having an office for 2 days,
Yeah.
right? Well, I would really agree with Attila when he said it's kind of a yes and a no. I think if I look at my team, it would really take time, and I think it would be very difficult for them to adjust to it because of the flexibility. So even now, we've got the AB, they prefer to have our flex policy, which allows them to come in any 3 days, but it's their choice due to commitments, which is very on top of their agenda. So I find that, and also with regards to the branding, and I think this is also very important. So if you go into a Hayes office here, if you go into a Hayes office in any country, we all have the same branding, all got the same feel. And I think this is also an important aspect of the company itself. I think the idea, I think the idea is very new and interesting, but will it get there? I don't know. Will there need to be change management? Definitely.
For us, 5% of organization is coming 5 days per week.
That's solvable. I mean, like, I'm sorry, I don't want to take.
We have another question here.
Hi, thank you. Danny from Citi. So the world was very different a couple of weeks ago when we filled out this survey, even though the data is not that old. In light of the different crises that we have to focus on now and how the case numbers and everything changed, would you change your responses to the survey significantly, or what would be the differences if you filled it out now?
I think that's actually I was speaking to my colleagues about that, and I said, well, actually now, you know, we're facing other things happening in the world, which of course is very close to us. So it's, you know, it's the well-being. So if you're going to ask me this, I'm emphasizing it more today about the well-being because of what's happening. You know, we thought we're going to have a breather after COVID. We thought things would get a bit back to norm, and then something else happened. So I still think that it was pushed up. It's very important, but it's being pushed up even more up on my agenda as well. It's something I can say if I compare it to the last month, sure.
We have also online questions, which I would like to read out loudly if you allow me. Question from Miklos is there an insight into how companies will define hybrid work? Mandate a couple of days a week or only when it's working? I think partially we answered that. Is there any other comment from your side? Attila, István, anyone?
Well, we answered that, so it's different company by company because it's defined by the model. For us, it would be, let's say, a step-by-step approach. Having close to 700 people in the building, we need to manage them on the way that we create a step-by-step to bring back people, creating 2 days, but just Tommy said, something similar. And 2 days home office, 3 days in the office, and then we can increase that and create. And we are creating future flexible work solution where we bring in different elements and increase this a bit. But still, as I said, we would like to balance it on a way which is good for the people and good for the business.
Can I? There are very different models, and I saw a model that is creates linkage between flexibility and hybrid model. That we asked the employees, what do you want? How many days you would like to work in the office? We heard that there are 5% of the colleagues who like to be there for 5 days. There are those who would like to go to the office just 1 day a month. And upon this requirements, we create profiles, and then we can estimate the business benefits and make a mixture of these profiles. And then we introduce this given flexibility into the system, but also serving business needs. And I think what is also a manageable model that depending on the task we are doing, we suggest colleagues to come to the office. For example, where there is a collaboration need, where we need to innovate, then we bring colleagues into the office. But when you need silent space, we give them the floor and the opportunity to work from home. And these kind of models could be sustainable in long term. That was a question.
Any other question? Okay. What is the mic? Yeah, if you could get.
Hi, I'm Gergely from Grundfos, and I have a question related to the mental well-being and the work-life balance, which is a workload. But we realized that during this remote working, the workload increased both for leaders and non-leaders. In case of leaders, they always say they have to communicate more, have to get involved in recruitment, whatever, which is actually increasing the workload. And same goes for the employees, where getting answers to their questions takes more time on remote environment. And do you experience the same? And if yes, how do you actually? What do you actually?
We experience the same. So we experience the same, and besides, there are two things I will just mention here. One is that the remote managers also need to learn how to be really good in remote, just because historically they were touching the shoulder of the people, just because this is my team and this is how we work, and I look at your computer right away. So this is how they work, most of them. And they also had to, so we have trainings and coaching sessions and really good programs for the leaders, how to manage these situations. That's one thing. The other thing is that besides we have a so-called mental health well-being service provider, external company, which is phone call and the number, but employees can call anytime with any kind of issues. It could be related to anything: financials, COVID, war, flexibility, and stress levels, how to manage conflict, something like what they would like to discuss more in a broader outstander standpoint with an external. And these two together is a great hub for the people and for the leaders as well.
Just related to this, that would you have data on what percentage of your employees are actually using this service in Hungary?
We have, but this is again, this is a kind of GDPR compliance thing. To some extent, yes, but in leaders,
they receive or any kind of.
Yeah, so I would love to say that we get inputs about what kind of areas they are really interested in, more or less, and to be honest, the reality is that not too many people are calling this number. Is free, is really out there, it's really broad, it's a good provider, but this is something like personal thing that people do not really tend to share things, not only with the manager but also even externally. So this is that difficult. So what we do is that we emphasize to use it because it really helps.
You have a question?
Yeah, thank you. I'm Peter Tisch from University of Szeged. And it was a fantastic discussion, to understand basically how the colleagues, the potential labor market can see the priorities in terms of working for business service centers. But I would like to introduce other perspectives to that discussion, because you might know that in Szeged at the university we have 22,000 students, 5,000 are graduating yearly, and approximately 4,500 are coming from abroad, speaking different languages. And the statement is, and the observation is, that they would love to consider working for a business service center, irrespective of what we have discussed, if there would be such service centers coming to the city, because then I think the equation might be completely different as compared to a situation which is an existing market, then actually the potential employees can choose, which location, whether shall I go to the Váci corridor or shall I go to Soroksár, etc., etc. That's a different one. I just, would like to introduce that topic to the table and have your comments or questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So it's a very welcome topic, by the way, by HOA, because we very much believe in developing service centers elsewhere outside of Budapest, let's say this way. And second is definitely one of the major cities where I would see this possible. I see two two different angles to this discussion. One definitely is of how to do something outside of Budapest, which can decrease the risk of retention, increase more flexibility, and so on, by being there, present there in whatever form the office could be. And I think it's really a wide topic of what can or cannot be done. But I still think about flexibility of employers employing remotely. And that's a huge market, talent market, anywhere outside of Budapest to be accessed, which I think employers are forgetting about very, very often, or are not that much flexible as they possibly could be in terms of these regards. And I think this is a big learning lesson if I would be a leader of a service center of how I would access the available talent market. And speaking about students, Hungarian language speaking students, foreign students, but also about career changers. So people speaking languages and coming from whatever sector they are coming from, being trained and integrated into the sector. I think the reason why there is a not reluctance maybe, but less flexibility in these regards, because companies are struggling with the existing problem of integration of their employees, which they have in hand now, and trying to hunt all around. They don't have the mindset at the moment of how to even go further to deal with something in addition, although in my opinion is not that much different. It's just one way of solving a problem. And I think this one point is something what they have to, what they have to explore. But there is plenty of possibilities, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And if you remember, one of the slides showed that the important factors of from the employer's and employee's perspective, the business service sector knowledge is less important. So if I don't know if you recall the slide, it's not important anymore. Not really. It was important in the past, but today is not really visible. What Moni just said is about that how we reintegrate people from different environments, different background, reskilling and upskilling. This is what you mentioned is a good opportunity, and the remote area is really an extra in that.
Time is off. I'm very sorry because we will have to keep the time as well. So if anyone has any questions outside, feel free, still chance to talk. So thank you very, very much. I hope that you enjoyed as well. I always do. And thank you for being with us today. And I hope to see you next time, soon, in a month's time, actually. Thank you very much. Visszavalóan a